This is politically not working in Trump's favor. At what point are they going to realize that maybe things have gone too far?
Some of those people may disapprove because they want there to be more deportations even faster. You know, we've deported 2.6.
I don't think. Well, based on
you don't think
based
so?
on the
I
poll,
do.
hold on, Scott. Based on the polling, we have a lot of polling, especially this week. There's been a CNN poll. There's a Quinnipiac poll. It's pretty clear. They disapprove of his handling of deportations. They disapprove of what happened in Minnesota with Renee Good. And they disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration. If they thought he was doing a great job, they would applaud.
Hey guys, I'm Mike. In today's video, we're breaking down a high-stakes segment from NewsNight with Abby Phillip, where a heated debate exploded over the Insurrection Act and the potential militarization of domestic law enforcement. Watch as Abby Phillip fact-checks Scott Jennings in real time while he attempts to defend controversial talking points regarding federal power and immigration. We're going to look at how Abby uses legal context and hard questions to put these arguments to the test, and I'll be sharing my own thoughts on why these narratives often crumble under actual scrutiny. And as always, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know what you think about this exchange. Let's jump into the clips together.
Kind of makeup. He believes that the only way to deal with dissent is to crush it.
Right.
That is not only horrible politics, it is un-American, and it is likely to fail. This is, and they've been building up to this idea that they will create the crisis and then they will solve the crisis by cracking down even harder than the forces that they used to create the crisis. They're asking ICE to do outrageous things. They are recruiting them using Nazi, white supremacist propaganda, hinting to that. And then people see that. People who don't recognize it as Nazi or white supremacists, maybe they just join anyway. But the ones who do recognize it see it as a hint, the same kind of hint as stand back and stand by. And then you put those people in the field. This is not people coming to Washington to protest. These are people being placed in my neighborhood doing horrible things to my neighbors. And when people respond to that, they say, now the problem we created, we will solve with more force. This is a horrible political.
How dare you sit here and accuse ICE agents of being Nazi, Gestapo, and white supremacists when they are enforcing law? You just insinuated that they're apparently recruiting others. You said they're recruiting others, and then it's a dog whistle for others to then apply to that.
Absolutely.
Second of all,
let me tell you what he's referring to.
You didn't see that?
He's referring to posts that have been put out on social media by DHS.
I've seen all the posts.
And on the Department of Labor and on other accounts that have been traced back to white supremacist chat rooms, iconography.
That's equivalent of Hitler drank water, so if you drink water, you're Hitler.
Did you not see the one?
Well, look,
did you not see the one with George Washington?
There's plenty of stuff.
Did you see the one with George Washington?
Which specific one?
The one where they were using Nazi, it's hinting at Nazi phrasing over a picture of George Washington. Did you see it? Did you see it? You didn't see it.
Well, what was the Nazi phrasing?
You said you see it, but you didn't see it.
What is the phrase? What is the phrase?
And you didn't see it.
And the reason... Wait,
no one knows
that. Can I continue my answer?
You can't say the phrase.
I don't want to... Guys, hold on. I don't know what you're talking about. 1 second. Everybody stop talking. Just a second. I don't want to go down this cul-de-sac. All I was saying, just in response to your question, is that he wasn't saying ICE agents are Nazis or whatever it is. People have linked back to very specific places where white supremacist ideology is utilized. You can disagree with that, but that is what he's talking about.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say.
Now to the crisis on hand. Democrats created...
Just can you let her
Really?
finish?
Because I think it was Joe Biden who opened the border for 4 years and let in not only illegal aliens, but otherwise inadmissible aliens. And what did you think was going to happen when you let in millions of illegal aliens? It means that ICE must then carry out mass deportations because guess what? There are laws in the books. Now, the question then becomes, do you care about enforcing laws on the books, or do you think it's okay to just ignore certain laws?
Of course we want to enforce laws on the books.
So that's what ICE is doing.
Obama enforced the immigration laws. He deported millions of people. He wasn't shooting people in the street. He wasn't breaking car windows. His poll numbers didn't collapse over it because he was being overly aggressive and un-American.
It's hard to ignore the deeper pattern that Charles Blow and Abby Phillip are highlighting, a pattern that transcends any single administration. History proves that when governments prioritize escalation over restraint, they often harvest the very instability they claim to be preventing. Political scientists have long observed that heavy-handed enforcement, especially when fueled by inflammatory rhetoric, tends to alienate and radicalize communities rather than restoring actual order. What's frequently missed in right-leaning defenses is that immigration enforcement doesn't have to look like a theater of conflict. Under the Obama administration, for example, deportations were high, but they were managed through a clear hierarchy of priorities and established judicial processes rather than performative messaging. That distinction is vital. Public trust in our institutions erodes when law enforcement feels punitive and theatrical rather than measured and lawful. We also have to talk about the power of symbolism. Extremist movements often thrive on subtle cues and insider language that offer plausible deniability while signaling a clear message to their base. Ignoring this reality won't make it go away. The suggestion of using the Insurrection Act or active military power on domestic soil is a massive red flag. Our democracy has traditionally separated civilian policing from military force for a reason. Every major domestic deployment of troops from the civil rights era to the LA riots carried heavy, long-term political consequences. Normalizing the use of the military for routine enforcement disputes sets a dangerous precedent that future leaders could easily abuse. Ultimately, Blow and Phillip are defending a core democratic principle. Dissent is not a threat to be crushed, and force is never a sustainable substitute for legitimacy.
Where are all the Tea Party people who had, the "Don't Tread on Me" signs? Where are they today? This is America, and this is an un-American.
Exactly.
Okay, what this law will do, just so everyone understands, if invoked, it will allow the president to deploy the military. We're beyond National Guard here, so Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, into the streets to serve a policing function. Now, historically, we've tried to separate those two, right? For good reason. Posse comitatus is the Latin phrase, but it just means troops don't do policing. And so the question really is it will it help? Is it necessary to send in the military? Will that help ICE do its job better? And look, I grew up with, not grew up, but, in my job professionally, knowing dozens of ICE agents, and they've all been very good, very solid people who want to do the right thing. I made major cases with ICE. I mean, ICE doesn't just do deportation. They make criminal cases as well. So in my experience with ICE, they're not Nazis, they're not racist. But do we need to bring in uniformed Army, Navy, Marines to get on the streets with them? I promise you, ICE would tell you, would say,
I want to make sure we get this phrase in, because the phrase is one homeland, one people, one heritage, remember who we are as American, over a picture of George Washington. And that is a hint at what a lot of people are suggesting is a hint at a Nazi German party thing that said one people, one realm, one leader. Do you remember what the largest Nazi rally ever held in America, where it was held?
Have you ever seen a dollar bill that says one nation under God? Have you ever read John Jay, who said we were one people with one language?
In Madison Square Garden in 1934.
Right.
And you know what picture was on that stage? George Washington. And you know what the person said when they got on the stage to introduce that Nazi rally? Was that if George Washington was alive today, he and Adolf Hitler would be friends.
Right.
And a normal president.
Let me just make one more note. You were talking, Chris was talking about
when you call people white supremacists.
It's clear why Ellie Honig and Charles Blow consistently return to institutional guardrails rather than slogans or vibes. The United States intentionally built a wall between military power and civilian policing because we've seen how other democracies collapse into authoritarianism when those lines are blurred. The Posse Comitatus Act exists for a specific reason. Soldiers are trained to neutralize enemies, not to protect civil liberties or de-escalate domestic protests. History bears this out. Studies of domestic troop deployments show they rarely reduce long-term violence and often escalate tensions, particularly in marginalized or immigrant communities. Even former Pentagon officials have warned that normalizing military policing weakens civilian control and erodes accountability. There is also a public opinion reality that Brian Lyman simply cannot ignore. Recent polling from the AP and Pew Research shows that support for immigration enforcement drops sharply when voters see cruelty, chaos, or political theater. This isn't a rejection of law enforcement. It's a rejection of spectacle over strategy. People want effectiveness, not a show. Furthermore, we have to address the symbolism. Extremism researchers have documented how historical imagery and coded language are used to normalize radical ideas. Pointing this out isn't an attack on every individual agent, it's a necessary acknowledgement of how propaganda operates in the real world. At the end of the day, Honig and Blow are defending the legitimacy of our institutions. ICE functions best when it is professional, lawful, and insulated from political theatrics. Turning immigration enforcement into a militarized spectacle doesn't restore order. It erodes trust and inflames resistance, ultimately making everyone less safe. Historically, this kind of erosion of norms is exactly what past democracies ignored until it was too late. America's strength has always been rooted in restraint and accountability. Abandoning those core principles for short-term political optics risks consequences that will last far longer than any news cycle or campaign slogan ever could.
Keep quiet.
Scott, you talk a lot about these so-called 80-20 issues. So Trump seems to be on the way to turning immigration into at least a 70-30 issue, not in his favor. The latest AP poll says just 38% of Americans approve of immigration. That's way down from where he started. This is politically not working in Trump's favor. At what point are they going to realize that maybe things have gone too far?
Some of those people may disapprove because they want there to be more deportations even faster. You know, we've deported 2.6.
I don't think. Well, based on
You don't think
based
so?
on the
I
poll,
do.
hold on, Scott. Based on the polling, we have a lot of polling, especially this week. There's been a CNN poll. There's a Quinnipiac poll. It's pretty clear. They disapprove of his handling of deportations. They disapprove of what happened in Minnesota with Renee Good, and they disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration. If they thought that he was doing a great job, they would applaud what has been happening so far, and they aren't.
I mean, look, we can debate the polling. Donald Trump flatly told the American people he was going to deport illegal aliens. He was going to mass deport illegal aliens, and that's exactly what they've done. They've deported.
He said he was going to deport the worst of the worst.
Yes.
And they are.
No, they're not.
And so,
73% of them have no record whatsoever.
That's actually
that is not false.
Look,
and only 3% have violent
Why don't I let finish? I get asked questions and you just talk and you talk.
Oh, so you've never talked over anybody.
Hold on,
Thank you, sir.
Charles, finish your thought, Scott.
Here's the deal. He ran on it, and he's doing it. And he's going to be the president for the next 3 years, and they're going to continue to do it. They've deported 2.6 million people. About 2 million have actually self-deported. Only 600 and something thousand have actually been deported through ICE or Border Patrol or other law enforcement operations. So the vast majority of people who are leaving the country are doing so through self-deportation. To me, the greatest question here is, why does it and why is it that Democrats in the state of Minnesota believe that they should be immune from or not applicable to federal immigration law that has been on the books for years? We haven't passed any new laws.
And again,
we haven't passed any new laws.
It is a
That's not the question.
It's a misleading statement about how Democrats believe a stationary law.
No, it's misleading. People are responding to the cruelty.
It's when you ask for immigration status, not
when we come back, we'll talk about what Democrats and people in Minneapolis are mad about, because there's some very specific examples that I want us to dig into. So let's push.
It's clear that Abby Phillip and Charles Blow are grounding their positions in data and institutional reality, not just partisan instinct. History and current polling show that when immigration enforcement prioritizes optics over outcomes, public support predictably collapses. Multiple 2026 polls show that while Americans favor order, they consistently prefer targeted enforcement focused on serious criminal threats, not broad sweeps that disrupt stable families and local workplaces. There is also a massive data point that the pro-spectacle side keeps ignoring. Recent reports show that a significant share of those swept up in the latest operations have no violent criminal record and are deeply integrated into our local economies. Economists are sounding the alarm, warning that these mass-scale strategies are already fueling labor shortages and driving up consumer prices in sectors like agriculture, construction, and caregiving. These aren't just statistics, these are costs that land squarely on the shoulders of American working families. The idea that public disapproval means people want more of this theater doesn't hold up under scrutiny. When enforcement is perceived as chaotic or punitive, much like the fallout from family separation policies, trust in government drops across party lines. We're also seeing a major federalism crisis. Courts have long held that effective enforcement relies on cooperation between federal and local authorities. When that balance is traded for coercion, compliance actually weakens. Even some Republican-led areas are beginning to push back on mandates that drain their local resources. Ultimately, Abby and Charles are pointing to a dangerous pattern. Policies driven by grievance, politics often overpromise and underdeliver. Tough rhetoric might energize a specific base, but real governance requires precision, legality, and restraint. Ignoring those principles doesn't just backfire politically, it undermines the very rule of law that our democracy is built on. That's the breakdown for today. The data shows that a one-size-fits-all approach to enforcement is hitting our economy and our communities where it hurts. But I want to know what you think is the current spectacle, making us safer, or is it just creating more chaos? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button if you found this breakdown helpful, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. I'm Mike, and I'll see you in the next one.